Hello and welcome to today's webinar, The Path to Effective PCI DSS Compliance. My name is Jordan and I'm in marketing here at Progress. Now I'm going to introduce you to today's presenters, Lokesh and Shua.
Thank you, Jordan. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on the path to effective PCI DSS compliance. My name is Shua Mateen, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Progress, primarily focusing on product marketing initiatives for Chef Compliance product. And we also have with us Lokesh. Lokesh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Lokesh and I'm currently working as a senior product manager with Chef, and I've been with Chef for almost 2 years. So I'm handling the overall Chef compliance product portfolio. Sure.
Thank you, Lokesh. So let's quickly go through the agenda for today's discussion, right? So over the course of this presentation, we will give a very high-level overview of PCI compliance and its relevance. We will introduce how DevOps and DevSecOps helps in PCI DSS compliance. We will also touch upon how Progress Chef comes into play to solve some of the PCI requirements. Lokesh will be doing a short demo of a solution to manage PCI compliance. We will then go through a short customer success story. And finally, we will conclude it with Q&A. And if you're attending this webinar today, right, you're probably already familiar with the PCI data security standard. However, I'll quickly give you a very high-level overview of the PCI DSS standard. It was established in 2006 to help protect cardholder data like your card number, card expiry date, CVV, etc. And compliance with the PCI DSS industry standard is a requirement for any company that basically accepts, stores, or manages credit and debit card details. And any business dealing with card data must always be compliant, and compliance must be validated annually. So basically what they need to do is they need to have all the necessary controls in place to manage compliance. And what is actually most important is the level of compliance, what you can see here, right? So depending on the number of transactions that you process, you might fall under one of these 4 levels. So if your organization processes less than 20 card transactions, you might fall under level 4. From 20K to 1 million, you would fall under level 3. And if you're processing 1 to 6 million card transactions in a year, you'll fall under level 4. And any transactions above 6 million, you would probably fall under level 1. Why this is important actually is because the applicability and the requirements and even the penalties for non-compliance would actually vary depending on the level that you come under, right? So you might want to scope your requirements properly depending on the level that you actually fall under. And you are also likely aware of the tremendous negative impact that PCI breaches can have on organizations, right? I've just given a few examples here to kind of paint a picture on the current state of data breaches and some of the stats from the industry. So day in and day out in the news, we hear about data breaches, especially around credit card details being compromised. And this, of course, leaves a very huge impact on the organization, not only in terms of penalties faced and brand reputation, but also in terms of potential lost revenue. And like what I've stated here is the fashion retailer Shein was fined $1.9 million for a data breach affecting 39 million customers. And over 1.2 million credit card numbers were leaked in a hacking forum and were sold in the dark web. A few other interesting facts are that according to research report by Ponemon Institute and IBM, 83% of the organizations who were surveyed for this research have had more than one data breach in the last 1 year, right? And out of which only 17% said that this was their first data breach. So you can imagine how many breaches and the extent of data breaches that organizations have had. And this number has significantly increased over the last couple of years. And the same report also mentions that the average total cost of a data breach is $4.3 million. And what would this cost include? It would include fines, damage control, loss of potential business, etc. And last year saw a 13% increase in ransomware breaches across the world, which is higher than the previous 5 years put together. And this is based on Verizon's data breach investigations report. So all these data points only tell us that breaches across industries are skyrocketing, they are rising, and the reasons are many. We all are aware: remote workforce, misconfigured software settings, weaker controls, etc., right? And organizations are always under pressure to have the security systems in place and stay compliant with all the latest regulatory requirements. So, having set the stage here, just wanted to understand what is your approach to managing PCI DSS compliance, right? Let's actually take a quick poll here to get a sense, and maybe I'll pause for a few seconds while you, and I'll give you time to answer the poll. All right, I hope you got to answer the poll. So while you may have a very good understanding of all things PCI, right, what you might not be aware of is, or what is not immediately apparent is that DevOps and DevSecOps can be very critical to eliminating any PCI risk. And why do we say that? Because according to a research by Microsoft, 80% of ransomware attacks can be traced to configuration errors. So it's highly possible that a large number of PCI violations are also related to configuration errors. And again, what's the reason? It could probably be because of the scale, right? The tremendous number of moving parts that have to come together to support an application. If you think about it, the back-end infrastructure, the business processing and database and storage technologies, to front-end applications running on different devices, whether it's POS devices, order entry devices, your kiosks, to everything in between, including web servers, application servers, cloud-native assets, Docker, Kubernetes. So this could be the reason why there are so many configuration errors that are contributing to PCI violations. And here is where DevSecOps comes to the rescue, right? What is DevSecOps? It's really a practice in application security that involves introducing security earlier in the SDLC process, right? And this, by introducing security way early in the whole SDLC process, it expands collaboration between the different teams involved, whether it's your operations teams, your security and compliance team, and your DevOps teams, right? And uh, if you see here, Chef Compliance actually helps in continuous compliance, or it provides continuous checks and audits in your system, and it ensures that your system is configured correctly. And again, like I said, organizations have a complex set of assets, a fleet of assets, from on-prem data centers to hybrid clouds to applications that reside in the industrial edge, and devices and applications that process credit card information, right? Again, we'll get more into the specifics of how Chef manages both configuration and compliance, and you'll see the demo also. But one thing to note here is that unlike other approaches where your compliance and security is introduced very late in your software development lifecycle, and it acts like a how do I put it, like an inhibitor to your delivery or inhibitor to your deployment speed, Chef ensures that your security and compliance checks can be integrated very early in the whole development life cycle, right? And again, how do we do that? We primarily use a policy as code approach where policies are managed with other application assets as part of your regular, it's treated like any other code, right? You can do your check-in, you can do your versioning, you can do your CI/CD, etc. And these policies, whether it's your compliance policies, your security and governance policies, your development policies, all these policies, they are human readable, which actually facilitates collaboration between the different teams, and it eliminates any spreadsheets or other manual ways of tracking policy acceptance or policy adherence. And that brings me to the next poll as to what is your approach to managing DevOps. Again, I'll take a pause here and let you answer from the options that we have. Whether you're too early to report, do you use DevOps for configuration management for some of your workloads, or do you actually use the DevSecOps principles to support your security and compliance initiatives? All right. I hope you got a chance to answer the poll. Let's move on. So again, I'm sure you are aware of most of the PCI DSS requirement groupings if you are have to comply with PCI DSS in the first place. We have different requirements related to securing assets, monitoring and testing assets, implementing access controls, leveraging security policies, maintaining a vulnerability management program, and all of this with the clear goal of protecting cardholder data. So what we've done is we've tried to map some of these requirements to how Chef can help you support, but we don't have time to go through each individual requirement to explain how Chef can help support each specific requirement. We'll be glad to do a follow-up and address the requirements that are specific to your organization. So today what we'll do is just focus on some foundational capabilities that lead to a DevSecOps approach that is optimized to meet your specific PCI DSS and even any other regulatory requirements, right? So starting with our architecture itself, right? Our approach is designed to support zero trust foundations, including visibility, including analytics, automation and orchestration and governance. And our architecture reduces the whole threat surface area, performs human-free operations, and provides unparalleled visibility into your whole app infrastructure. And we have extended our as code approach so that we support both infrastructure as code as well as policy as code using a single common framework. And we provide out of the box functionality for you to continuously, we have content available from CIS benchmarks, from DSAS sticks, and this content is maintained by us, and we make it very easy to customize these standards to meet your specific requirements. And this leads to a continuous compliance approach, since Chef is capable of auditing your desired frequency and with the capability of automatically remediating. So we have audit plans and we have remediation plans tied to audit plans as well, right? And from an overall assessment perspective, we provide a single pane of glass visibility into the status of your entire fleet. And we have customers who have said that the event of the audit is as simple as taking or printing the output, right? And this helps in enabling on-demand risk assessment. So before we actually jump into the demo, just wanted to quickly show you very intuitive high-level workflow and the steps in the workflow, the different steps being acquire, define, monitor, remediate, and report. So I'll quickly go through these steps before we go to the demo. In the acquire state, you can use out-of-the-box curated content from CIS benchmarks and DSAS sticks, and this content is curated and maintained by Chef. When you define, you can start with the standard content that we have and you can customize it as per your specific requirements. We also have the waiver functionality, or you can have exceptions from certain specific controls, or you can skip controls and you can provide justifications of why you are skipping those controls. And monitor is where the value of Chef actually comes by automating the whole configuration process and fixing it based on the policy as code approach. And remediation, I already spoke about. So during the monitoring process, if there are any misconfigurations that are identified, you can automatically remediate this to address any configuration drifts. And finally, we have the complete single pane of glass reporting that can also be fed into third-party solutions like Splunk or ServiceNow and any other third-party software, right? So that's about the workflow for Chef DevSecOps. And now let's look at how this can be achieved with a quick demo of a solution. Over to you, Lokesh, for the demo.
Thank you, Shua. Now that we have introduced the role that Chef can play with your PCI DSS efforts, let's do a quick demo to show how all this works. Since Chef provides the out-of-box premium content with CAs and STIG benchmarks, we'll see how CAs controls can be reused to validate or audit the corresponding PCI DSS controls in this demo. So let's get started. Before that, we'll be running eight or nine CS controls that relate directly to equivalent of PCI DSS controls using a rail-line profile. First, we'll try to audit the controls and see which are the controls getting passed and failed. Then we'll analyze each set of controls and determine how we can codify it in a policy file. Basically, the Chef Automate which provides reporting and analytics across your entire fleet of assets. I'm trying to add a PCI profile of Rel 8 node, and then I'm trying to create a scan job of PCI demo. So that is the overall context of this audit. And let's see, I'm going to complex tab, and I'm trying to create a scan job. I'm integrating a node, Rel 8 node. Then I'm trying to add a Rel 8 Linux PCI custom profile. The name PCI demo. Now you see like the profile is in running state. The scan job is in running state. It takes a couple of minutes to get completed. Yeah, it gets completed. And if you look at the reports, you see the number of controls getting 11 controls, like out of 11, 8 is getting failed and 3 is getting passed and 0 is getting skipped and waived. So now let's look at each of this PCI DSS control. The first control is to ensure that telnet server is not getting installed. If you look at the source code, it relates to 3.2.1 and 2.3 PCI control. So we are going to check with the help of the telnet package resource, and it should not be installed. Telnet package should not be installed. Now let's see the PCI document of the corresponding controls. It states that review service and parameter files on system to determine telnet are not available, those set of things. If you look at the next control, ensure firewall is installed. Going to the source code, you can see the described block is checking whether the packages like firewall D, IP tables, NF table packages are installed or not. And if you look at the PCI, it says like 1.2.3, 1.4, and 2.2.2. Now let's see the corresponding PCI control 1.2.3. It talks about the firewall aspects. Ensure firewall D service is enabled and running. If you look at the source code, we have the PCI control of 1.4, which is similar to the previous one. Checking on firewall, IP tables, and NF tables. And now we can move to the next control. Ensure SSH idle timeout interval is configured. It talks about the timeout of 900 seconds. So the corresponding PCI control is 8.1.8. And if you see 8.1.8, it talks about the session being idle for more than 15 minutes and require user to re-authenticate and reactivate the terminal or session. Now going back to automate and the corresponding CAS is 5.2.20. Now the next control is ensure SSH access is limited. It basically shows the checks on the SSHD config content. And in the source code, you can see the CIs and PCI control 7.1.1 and 7.1.2 and 7.1.3. It talks about the allow groups, allow user, deny groups with SSD config file. And if you see the 7.1.1, it talks about the user access controls and system access controls restriction. It talks about the system level check and data level check and privilege level of privileges required, like user privilege, administrative privileges for accessing resources. Now, if you look at the next control, ensure password creation requirements are configured properly or not. We are basically checking the password auth content file. And if you see here, the PCI file is PCI control is 8.3.6, and it checks for password d auth file and then like system d auth content and password quality dot conference content. Now, if you look at the next control, it's like ensure inactive password lock is there or not. Let's say if the user is not having a password or having an inactive password, what will happen? So these are the checks we are doing. And if you look at the source code, we are using default user add file, and we are going to check on those things. And the PCI control is 8.1.7, and we are also going to use shadow property or shadow resource of inspect. If you look at the PCI control, it talks about the lockout duration of minimum of 30 minutes until the administrator name with the user ID. Now, if you look at the next control, ensure system accounts are secured. It talks about the account level security. And if you look at the it's basically checks on the etc password file and details. If you look at the source code, so the corresponding PCI file is PCI control is 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3, and we are using password resource, and we are using we are checking like the password user should not be empty, and those set of checks we are trying to have. System level accounts are secured. So PCI is 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. So it has a lot of controls on 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3, and talking about the system level control security. So these are the detailed controls. Due to time limits, I'm just skipping these controls. And if you look at the next control, ensure access to the sudo command is restricted or not. If you look at the source, so we have like 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3 PCI control, which talks about the sudo command restriction. And again, we are trying to leverage pam.d sudo file properties. I'm going to check on those configurations there. And these are the checks done on this pam.d file. Next control talks about ensure password fields are not empty. If you look at the source code, it talks about the PCI 8.2.3 control. And again, we are using the shadow resource of inspect to check whether the password fields are empty or not. These are the corresponding PCI controls. And if you look at the next control, ensure lockout for failed password attempt is configured. If you look at the source code, you're checking on pam.d, password auth, system auth, and those set of files and doing the configuration checks. So the corresponding PCI file is 5.5.2. And on a ending note, like I hope this demo shows like both the power and use of using like CA's content, which is created and maintained by Chef for PCI DSS compliance efforts. If we had more time, we could have shown like how easy to take this package, the content, and modify it like uh, to specific customer requirements by including the ability of the support of like waiver concept, skipping controls, attestations, those set of things. But we can show you all of that plus the ability to remediate and then like reporting and analyzing both configuration state, compliance audits, and more. No, just let us know and we can follow up directly with your team and we can give a detailed demo on all these controls. All right. Now let's see how our customer testimonial for PCI DSS looks. So we have a customer called Haventech. So Haventech is basically like an organization in the cybersec space. It helps their customers maintain privacy and security in every digital interaction. So the main challenge for them is in terms of manually validating all the PCI controls, which was taking a lot of time for the security team. So that's a main challenge for them. And we have deployed a Chef compliance with Inspect and Chef Automate, and they could easily conduct audits and remediate any issues, and they ensured compliance with PCI DSS seamlessly. And they also enabled like a rapid scale and growth for in terms of systems and also for their customers. And we also helped in automating their infrastructure by provisioning Docker environments quickly and with a lot of consistency. And their deployments were now like reduced from days to minutes, and we ensure like zero data loss in 5 years with their PCI DSS compliance. All right, so this is about the customer testimonial. Now I will hand it over to Jordan to open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Lokesh and Shua, for your presentation. We are going to go ahead and jump right into our questions. If you haven't done so already, you can now go ahead and add your questions to the questions panel. Starting off with our first question here, does your solution allow implementing remediation plans to close PCI compliance gaps?
Yes, that's a good question, Jordan. So we have not built the exclusive remediation content for PCI DSS assets. Like hence, yes, like we are planning to have it, like planning to have like the exclusive audit and remediation content. So once we have that, you can apply remediation cookbooks easily and seamlessly on your targeted nodes.
Excellent, thank you. Another question just came in here as well. How to remediate failed controls?
So again, as mentioned, like the remediation of failed controls comes with remediation content. So once we have the like exclusive remediation content, you can easily apply the remediation cookbooks to it.
Perfect. Thank you, Lokesh. Another question we have here, what type of infrastructure can be validated with the PCI content available in your solution?
It would be applicable on like all on-prem nodes, like cloud, container, and Kubernetes related environments. So we have solid resources, inspect resources built around all this environment. And again, as mentioned by Shua, like you'll be getting a benefit of like to view all the systems, like all the nodes, all the resources, whichever like PCI complaint or not, from a single pane of glass, like in a single dashboard, you can view it easily. So basically, you can apply in all on-prem nodes, cloud, container, and Kubernetes related environments.
Awesome, thank you. Next question we have here is, how can one access Chef Premium cookbooks?
So we have built a lot of content. for with respect to CAS, sticks, and we are also planning to build exclusive one for PCI. So you will be getting all this content through our seamless content channel, where you'll be getting all the audit and remediation content through an email. So if you have not subscribed to it, please send a note to us, to our support team or sales team. Your mail would be added to our mailing list, and you'll be getting through seamless content email.
Awesome, thank you. One more last question it looks like we have here. It's a scan-only platform, but also supports applications.
It also supports different sets of applications with respect to Tomcat, or web servers, and different type of DBs. Like we have support for MongoDB, Postgres. Yes, it has support for wide variety of applications in terms of servers, operating systems, DBs, and different cloud environments. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And that is all the time we have for questions today. If we didn't get to your question, we'll make sure to follow up with you directly. Thank you all for joining us on today's webinar, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.